Hello out there in podcast land. Welcome to the Game or Die podcast. The website is gameordie.net, and you can find me on Twitter at themadman007. I am your host, Ryan Moore. All right, so for this week's episode, I'm going to first talk about Michael Jackson's death. It happened a couple weeks ago. It was the anniversary, I believe it was the 10th year anniversary since he died, and I think Michael Jackson had such a huge impact on the music world, obviously, that when he died, it actually really hit me. I remember when I was extremely young, my family went up north to Sacramento, and I remember coming back, and I want to say I was probably about 3 or 4. And we were coming back from Sacramento on this long road trip. And I remember that was the first time I really got into Michael Jackson in music. I heard Beat It. And I thought it was the coolest song in the world. I might have been maybe 4, maybe 5, but somewhere a very young age. And Beat It was the coolest song I've ever heard in my entire life. And I believe my dad had a cassette tape of the Thriller album. And so I remember playing that over and over and over and over and over again, being obsessed with that song. And that was my first real music obsession was Beat It. And so I remember the day Michael Jackson died. I remember exactly where I was when I heard that he died. And it was at the game store that we used to own. And I was working there, and my friend Devin, who I haven't seen in a long time, he actually phoned me up and he was like, "Hey man, I know that you moved back to California. I want to hang out with you. I want to see you and just catch up." And so he met at my store, and I was super excited. I got the store cleaned, beforehand and everything like that. I got all the job duties done so that I could hang out with one of my closest friends when I was in high school. And so I was all excited. He walks in and he's like, "Dude, Michael Jackson died." Before he even said, "Hey man, how's it going? What's up? It's been so long." He's like, "Man, Michael Jackson died." And I was like, "What?" And I was holding, I can't remember exactly what game it was, but I was just kind of sitting there killing time by pricing games and stuff like that, or cleaning them or whatever. And I just dropped the cartridge because I was so in shock. I was like, "No." And I was just bummed out. Obviously, I think people, when celebrities die and things like that, people take it way too seriously. But, this dude created so many memorable music, or such memorable music, so many different things in his life. He was such a big part of a lot of people's lives. So when he died, it affected a lot of people, and I totally get that, and it affected me too. And then the day or two after, even that day, I remember getting phone call after phone call after phone call at the store saying, "Hey, I got Michael Jackson's Moonwalker for Sega Genesis. Can I bring it in and trade it in for $100 or something?" And I was like, "No, even though he died, that game isn't worth all that much. It was a very mass-produced game. It's not rare. It doesn't hold a lot of value. It holds sentimental value for a lot of people. It holds sentimental value for me. I love that game. I remember learning a lot about that game. I remember renting that game when it came out on the Sega Genesis, and I was just, oh man, that game is so rad. I remember, moving around and he moonwalks everywhere, and it is just the coolest game in the world for me at that time. It was amazing. So I remember playing that at my cousin's ranch. My cousins used to own a ranch up in Northern California, and we would go up there every spring break. And I remember my cousin playing this game, and I was watching it, and I was never great at it. I could get to the 3rd level, I want to say, somewhere around there, where Beat It plays with all the dogs and stuff. I believe that's the 2nd level, and I can't remember if the 3rd level is the graveyard scene. or the graveyard level. And I remember the graveyard level, my cousin telling me, hey, you know how Thriller is not in this game? Like the song Thriller should be the background music for the graveyard level, right? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what song is this that's playing? And I was like, you know what? What song is this? It's definitely not Thriller. And it's Better Part of Me, or Part of Me. I can't remember the exact name of the song, but it's the Captain EO song, as everyone knows it as. It's not Thriller for the graveyard scene where all the zombies are and you make them dance. So they do the Thriller dance, but they don't use the song. And the reason why is because that song has copyright, with all music, there's copyright information, all that stuff where there's tons of legal issues with music. And that's the reason why Thriller does not play in that game, or is not in that game at all, is because I believe Quincy Jones owns the copyright to that song, not Michael Jackson, or is it Apple Music? I can't remember who actually owns the rights to Thriller, but it's not Michael Jackson. And so they could not use it for the video game, which I thought was insane. And it blew my mind when I was younger, when my cousin told me that. So Michael Jackson's death happened, and I remember when that happened, I was so bummed out that he died and stuff like that. And I remember hearing about this movie that was going to come out, and it was the This Is It movie. And I wanted to go see it in the theater, but I didn't, for I think a various number of reasons. I think one of the reasons was I just couldn't bring myself to watch that movie after he died. I was so bummed out. It just, not like a deep depression, but it was bumming me out. It was a depression of some sort where I was just like, you know what? I don't think I'm ready to watch this, and so I didn't go see it in the theater. And then when it came out on video, I did not go see it. And so I was in a hotel room a couple of years ago, and I was super bored, and I was just bummed out, and I had nothing to do. And I was just like, I'm dealing with this crappy job, and I'm in a hotel room, down, I think it was in San Diego. And I was just bored, and I had nothing to do, and I had nothing to watch. I had nothing to play. And so I was just scrolling through my Plex library going, man, what should I watch? And I watched this, I came across This Is It. And I was like, oh, that sounds actually really, really fun. So I was ready to at that point. And so I watched it. And it is phenomenal. If you want a really good understanding of Michael Jackson as a performer and his mind, yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with him. And especially now, too, like, it's a bummer that people are trying to trash his legacy. With everything, a lot of people will do stuff after people die. And there's a lot of, political arguments and stuff like that for a ton of different stuff. And I'm not a political person, so I don't care about any of that crap. I think we should stop trashing people's names after they died, just maybe because they did something bad, or it might have seen. But, again, look at the evidence of all this stuff. Michael Jackson was a weirdo when it comes to real life stuff. He had that Peter Pan complex and blah, 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 and all this stuff. But dude, put that aside and just look at his musical talent. That man was a genius when it came to music. He had a God-given gift of music, and just the way he thought about music and the way he performed his music. It's incredible. And that's what This Is It is. It's a behind-the-scenes documentary about the tour that he was going to come back with after all the tabloids, after all the media crap in the 90s and the early 2000s. A separate one, when we were all like in high school, roughly, for the people my age anyways, or right out of high school. All that stuff came up again, and he got acquitted, and people still, are so divided on him as a person. And I just say, don't even think about that, because that's not what this documentary is. This documentary is 100% about him and his music. and trying to come back a new time after Invincible came out, after all the litigations again that he got acquitted with. And he is on his game. And it is heartbreaking that you see all the work that leaded up to this movie and what this documentary is showing, and the way his mind thinks about his music. And, there's a special scene that I always talk about whenever I talk about this movie. He's sitting there or he's standing on stage and they're working out human nature, which is honestly at this point in my life, like I said, I love Beat It. It's one of my favorite songs. I can give you a top 10 rundown of my favorite Michael Jackson songs. But number one, my favorite Michael Jackson song is Human Nature. And it is such it's a sweet song. It's a cool song. It's it's a different song than what you think of when you think of Michael Jackson. And so he is standing on stage with a couple choreographers and the music technicians, the sound engineers, and he is working out the way he wants to perform this song live for his audience. And he's talking about, oh, hey, let's do this part again. And they replay the music back and he starts singing. And then he's going, stop. I got to let it simmer a little bit. I got to let this emotion take over the crowd. And the way he's describing his music is just, it's on another level. It really is. It's incredible. So that's just a little taste of what this documentary is. And I'm a huge fan of documentaries. Most of the time I'll watch a documentary over a story-based movie because it's real life, and you get to see the inner workings of people's lives. Hopefully it's not super overproduced. Hopefully it's not pushing some sort of agenda. And that's what really bothers me about a lot of documentaries is when they push an agenda. There was a documentary that, so I think I talked on the last episode about the Orson Welles documentary. And I got really into Orson Welles and I started talking, I saw someone post on Reddit a clip from the Dick Cavett show back in like the late 70s, early 80s of Orson Welles being interviewed. And he talks about having dinner with Hitler. He was literally, he had dinner with Hitler when he was a lot younger. And he basically says Hitler was such a blank canvas of a person, so boring. He had nothing special about him whatsoever. He doesn't even remember Hitler at all, but he knew, or his family knew, or however it went. He was having dinner with some high-ranking officials of Austria or Belgium, high-ranking officials of Germany. And as a kid, he sat down with these high-ranking officials, and Hitler was at the table too. And this is before he started World War II and overtook Germany and all that stuff and became a world dictator. But he had such a non-impression of him. He's like, it's kind of a blank spot in my mind. Like, I remember everyone else. I remember everything that everyone was wearing. But, there was this guy, Adolf Hitler, and he was such a boring person. He had nothing to him that I don't even really remember him all that much. So he goes in detail about other movies that he's done and his career and how he got started and stuff like that. And it's like a 12-minute interview. Find it online. Just Google Orson Welles Dick Cavett show, and I guarantee you'll find that interview. But I watched this little thing, and I replied back to the guy who posted it, and I was like, that was really interesting. Cool. Thank you very much for posting that. And he's like, yeah, I said, thank you very much for posting that. I've gotten really into Orson Welles lately. I watched this episode called, I can't remember what the name of it was. I explained it on the last episode, but the defeat of Citizen Kane, or breaking Citizen Kane, or whatever it was. And then the guy replied back, yeah, that's really cool. There's also this documentary called Me and Orson Welles, and also the Netflix one. I was like, yeah, I watched the Netflix one when it came out last year or early this year, and it was really good. I never heard of Me and Orson Welles, or Through the Eyes of Orson Welles, or whatever it was. I think it's Me and Orson Welles. And so I started researching, and I was like, oh, cool. It was a thing that was produced like last year or 2 years ago, or 2016, 2017. And so I downloaded it, and I started watching it. And I started watching this documentary, and it's this one guy who wanted to make a documentary apparently about Orson Welles. Fortunately, I didn't finish it because he gets into this political digging, just pushing his agenda right out of the gate. And also the way he narrates it it just felt weird and off. It felt like he was in love with Orson Welles, not like I love him. I love all his art and, the way he thought and blah, blah. It was like, no, this dude is in love with Orson Welles. He's like, man, Orson, if you were here with me right now, oh, you would be so upset. And it had a really weird feeling to the documentary. And then he started pushing political agenda too, just taking digs at America and our political system and all that crap. And I was just like, this isn't what this documentary should be about. It should be about Orson Welles. I got 10 minutes into the documentary. I just turned it off. It was garbage. Don't watch that one. But if you do want a really good non-agenda pushing, either way, however you feel about Michael Jackson, as a person, doesn't matter here, because this is about the musician, the artist that Michael Jackson was, and the way he felt about his music and the way he wanted to perform. And it's, like I said, it's tough to watch if you really like Michael Jackson, because it's such a heartbreaking thing to see how passionate he was, how much he wanted to make the best show possible, and then just dies out of nowhere for so stupid reasons. And we didn't get to see this. And this would have been just another comeback for Michael Jackson. He, man, it is incredible to watch. So if you're up for it, you like Michael Jackson's music, which again, everyone does. That he's called the King of Pop, which stands for popular music, the King of popular music, for a reason. And the reason is because he's good at what he does, and everyone loves what he does musically. And so it is incredible. Watch it if you have the chance. It's called This Is It. I think it came out 2010, I want to say. Either late 2000. Could have been late 2009. I don't think so. I think it came out early 2010, somewhere around there. But it's really, really cool. So go ahead and watch that. And then now I'm going to switch gears to the games that I've been playing for the last couple of weeks here. So 4th of July happened, and my wife went to go to Mexico to visit her dad and hang out and deal with some stuff down there. And so I had to stay home and watch all our animals. And so when I did that, I was really bored and I had nothing to do. So I was like, man, shoot, I've got 3 days straight of I have nothing to do. I have all the free time in the world. All I got to do is take care of our animals. So I basically sat in our house for 3 days and I did not leave. And I just started playing games. And I was trying to figure out what games I wanted to play. And I was like, man, there's nothing really out right now that I want to play. Steam sale was going on. So I was kind of looking through the Steam sale. Nothing really caught my eye. I started going through my Launchbox library, which is every game of all time ever. It's just a front end for emulators and stuff like that. So I'm going through all this stuff. I'm like, you know what? X-Men Legends is a game that I really want to finish because I started it early a year and a half ago, maybe even 2 years ago. And I started playing it, but every time I would play it, I just kind of get a little bit stuck. I didn't really understand the mechanics of the game because it's just been so long. And I really, really love the Ultimate Alliance series. And Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is coming out the end of July. So I was like, you know what? This is perfect time. I can play through I can finish X-Men Legends, which has been on my, kind of to-do list for gaming for years at this point. I can play X-Men Legends 2 because I never played that before and I want to. And then I can replay Ultimate Alliance and Ultimate Alliance 2 to get ready and amp myself up for Ultimate Alliance 3. And maybe it'll continue the story, who knows? So I went through and I played X-Men Legends, and I started from where I was, and I was about a third of the way through the game. Or so I thought. I was a little bit less than a third of the way through the game. I looked it up on howlongtobeat.com, which tells you all the completion rates or how long it takes to finish and beat a game. So I looked it up and I was like, dude, this game is like 17 to 19 hours, somewhere around there. And so I was like, shoot, this is going to take up my whole week or my whole weekend. And I just started playing it and I got obsessed with it. The story itself is very, very long. But it only has a couple of the main X-Men villains for the first game, X-Men Legends. And so I started playing it and I kind of remembered the story that is going on. I remember there's this girl called Allison that you basically pick up, and she's got mutant powers, and Professor X kind of picks her up and says, hey, we have a school for the gifted. We would really like you to come here, and so we can help you with your mutant abilities. And if this sounds very familiar to you, because it's basically the plot of the pilot episode for the X-Men cartoons, art cartoon of the 90s, replace Jubilee with this girl, Allison, and she gets named Magma. I believe she was created for this game, but I could be wrong. I don't know a lot of lore behind obscure X-Men. I know pretty much, I don't remember her being in any of the cartoons or anything, so I think she was created for this game. She's voiced by the girl, if she sounds familiar, if you look this up or if you played it before, Allison or Magma is voiced by Susie from the Rugrats. And she's a prominent voice actor. She does a ton of voice acting, but I remember as soon as I heard her voice for the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Susie from Rugrats. So I played this game and I got obsessed with it. The story it went kind of all over the place. Magneto's the big bad guy. He wants to allow mutants to be superior because he thinks they're superior to regular humans and blah, 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 all this stuff. Again, basic plot points of the X-Men movie, the first one that came out in 2000, basic plot points of a lot of the 90s cartoon. And it's a very basic story, but it's really good and it's fun. The levels are fun. Switching between all the different characters, switching out the characters, that's the hardest part I had. Is because I wanted to, when you use your characters, they level up as you use them. And so you want to use the 4 and have them all level up as you go through because, again, later levels obviously are going to be more difficult. I did not really like switching out my characters, and there are a few levels where you have to switch out your character to cross an area. There's a little area where there's a little X-Men symbol, and it's a big old gap across a ravine or across a sewer system or something where you have to either fly or have someone who can create a bridge, and the only person who can create a bridge is Iceman. And so Iceman has to create this bridge so that all the characters can walk through. And it got tedious. It got boring, where I would get to a part and then have to backtrack all the way through the level to get to the save game area in the save point where you can switch out your characters. And I didn't want to switch out Iceman because, again, I just didn't like him as a character. I thought he was dumb. And the one bummer thing about it is that you don't have control over your costumes. You all just have very bland costumes and stuff like that. And so I didn't like the way characters looked, and they move very, very slowly. And so it takes forever to backtrack and then go all the way forward through the whole level again, just to swap out a character so they can build an ice bridge, walk everyone across, and then continue on. And then again, one of your characters is so underpowered, like my character Iceman, because I never used him except for the bridges, was so underpowered that he would always die and always spend money to revive him and all this stuff. So I played X-Men Legends. I finished it. The story was okay, but I just didn't like the story all that much. And so I was just kind of pushing through this very long story campaign to get to the second game, which is X-Men Legends 2 Rise of Apocalypse. I never played that game before because I only remember playing a little bit the beginning part of X-Men Legends, but never finishing it when it came out. And then I also played Marvel Ultimate Alliance. So I didn't play that second or middle game, X-Men Legends 2, before Ultimate Alliance came out because I never played the first one. And I try to play games in sequential order as much as possible, especially if there's probably a story arc where it's a literal sequel. And so I played X-Men Legends 2, booted it up, and instantly noticed that it felt better to control. Your characters move faster. You have more control, less lag to the characters. And you team up with a Brotherhood. So it's kind of like a direct sequel, in everyone's minds, where the bad guy becomes your ally. And so you get to control a bunch of bad guys. You get Magneto, Mystique, Sabretooth, couple other people. I can't remember exactly who, because again, I didn't switch out my characters all that often. My mains were Wolverine, Rogue, maybe. I tried Gambit. I tried a couple other characters, but it didn't feel good. So I had like this core main character set. And again, I stuck with it for the most part. The cutscenes in that game too are just excellent. They're amazing. They're so well crafted. It makes me kind of bummed out that there's only a few cutscenes in the entire game. I would have preferred kind of to see more animation from that stuff. And so I played through this game, which they said was longer, but I actually felt like it was a shorter campaign. Basically, Apocalypse shows up and he wants to take over the world and blah, blah, blah. Mr. Sinister shows up and kind of kidnaps people. And so you got to rescue them. You go to the Savage Land. You are in Egypt. There's a couple other areas where you go. I cannot remember whose base it is, but you go into this like Sentinel facility base. That Mr. Sinister is kind of producing all these mutant sentinels and stuff like that. It's a really cool story. But again, it was just kind of mediocre because I've played Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2. And so it had less stuff in Ultimate Alliance and it just felt a little bit slower, better than the first game of X-Men Legends, but just a little bit slower. So I really tried to get through that game as much as possible. And I was like, man, after finishing that game, I kind of wanted to watch something. And I was like, man, maybe I should rewatch some of the X-Men cartoons. And so I started thinking about that, but I didn't want to because I just didn't want to watch cartoons. Because I rewatched it about a decade ago. And I marathoned through the entire X-Men series and I loved it, but I didn't want to start at the beginning, nor did I want to start at the middle, just for some random episode. That kind of seems weird. So I was, again, scrolling through my Plex libraries. I was like, maybe I should watch one of the X-Men movies. And then I forgot that I started watching an X-Men anime years ago. It came out in 2011, and I was like, that's weird. And I got it and downloaded it and I never watched it past, I'd say, maybe 15 minutes of the first episode. I didn't even finish the first episode. And so I watched it and I was like, this is really good. It's about basically the X-Men disbanding after the death of Jean Grey during the Phoenix Saga. I'm not a big fan of the Phoenix Saga because it's like the only one that everyone tells. You saw the Phoenix Saga in the original X-Men movies from the 2000s. You saw it in the new versions of the new class. They just had the Dark Phoenix wrap up of that movie. It was in the cartoons. It's one of the biggest arcs. And it's just like, dude, I've seen that arc over and over and over and over and over and over again. Please stop telling the same story in different mediums or the same medium multiple times. It's like a Spider-Man or Batman movie that shows the origin story. Like that first movie is going to be an origin. I don't need an origin story. And I don't need a Dark Phoenix Saga movie or story because I've seen it. I've read it. I've watched it multiple times in multiple mediums. So please stop doing that. So it was really nice that basically this episode or this anime, and it's only 13 episodes long, doesn't even follow the ramp up to that. It literally has like the first 2 or 3 minutes maybe finishing up with the Phoenix Saga and Jean Grey dying. And then everything else after that is what this movie's about, or this anime series is about. And so it's Wolverine, Storm, Beast, and Cyclops all trying to get together to help find this little girl in Japan. And so they fly to Japan. Professor X kind of gets in touch with them, rebands the X-Men together and regroups them to find this little girl. And it's really cool. I'm not going to spoil it at all. Go check it out. It is a really, really cool anime. I'm not a big fan of anime. I like some anime if it's done well. I like certain slices of life anime. Like I've watched a decent amount, but I would never say I'm an anime fan. My wife and I actually watched the whole Dragon Ball Z Kai series last year, and I've already watched a lot of Dragon Ball Z stuff up until the Frieza saga when it first aired in America, when I was in junior high school, like late 90s, early 2000s. So I watched that stuff when it was airing, but it would repeat so often that I would have to stop because I couldn't watch the same episodes over and over and over and over again just to get one new episode per month or something like that and have to go redo the whole series. So I've watched a series called Kids on the Slope, which was basically a slice of life anime that deals in the early 90s, somewhere around there, that basically is about jazz musicians. There's this guy who plays jazz piano, and he forms a group of friends, and they all play jazz together. Really cool anime. The Kids on the Slope is what it's called. I've watched Attack on Titan, the first season, when that came out here in America, and that was really cool. I've watched Kill la Kill. I've watched Cowboy Bebop years ago. Neon Genesis Evangelion. I watched 6 or so episodes so far on Netflix. I'm not really into that. Like the first episode was kind of interesting, but it just got super boring, super just very dialogue heavy without having a lot of substance. I'm not into it. I've never been a big mech guy. Like, they're okay, but I'm not a big, like, mech. Oh, this is the greatest thing ever. All these gigantic robots battling. It's never really interested me all that much. So I tried sticking with it and just kind of started looking at my phone while these episodes were going because I was just bored. So I've watched a lot of anime, and this is another one where I would definitely suggest it, especially if you like X-Men. There's a lot of cool powers being used. Apparently, it's the first time in a cartoon that Wolverine has shown his berserker rage. and actually has like murdered people on screen. So I thought that was really cool. It's a really good thing. It kind of ends a little bit weirdly. It does not have a lot of focus on a ton of mutants. It's only a handful, but it is really, really cool and definitely worth, the 6-hour watch, somewhere around there. 20-minute episodes times 13, whatever that comes out to. I'm bad at math, but it's worth spending a day or two watching through the series. It's really good. Marathon it. So I watched that, and then my wife came home from Mexico, and then I had to go off to work and all that stuff. So before we did that, we started watching because it was the 4th of July when she left. And so on the 4th of July, Stranger Things Season 3 came out. And we've been waiting for this for a long time since Season 2 came out. Because, man, Stranger Things is good. I don't care what people say. Apparently, there's a very big divide. Either you're really obsessed with Stranger Things or you watched the first season and hated everything else after it. I think Stranger Things is one of the most phenomenal new series out there. It does something unique. Yes, it does play off of nostalgia, but that's the setting. It's almost like a period piece in saying, well, this period piece is playing off of nostalgia. Yeah, no duh, because that's what the time period that it's set in. I do think there are some things with the Stranger Things season, especially 3, from the first 2 episodes that we watched after she got back from Mexico. I kind of noticed that they're using a lot of music, maybe a possible overabundance of music. That would be like the one thing that I really would say, you're playing the nostalgia card a little bit too heavy here. But it's not super distracting. I noticed it because I kind of notice a lot of that stuff. I pick apart series. It's just the way I was taught in college, doing film school and stuff like that. You pick apart these films. So I really, really, really liked everything about it. I just noticed that, they're relying heavily on a lot of music here to emphasize, hey, this is the 80s. But, man, I remember when we first watched this first season of Stranger Things, basically what happened was it was a Sunday night, like Sunday afternoon, and I had a class in another town. So I had to leave town and on Sunday evening and go drive to, wherever it was for this class and do this class out of town. So I had to because I travel a lot for work. So my wife and I were sitting down, and we just got married, I think. And we were like flipping through Netflix, trying to figure out what we want to watch before I leave. And I was like, man, I've heard so many good things about Stranger Things. And she goes, yeah, I do too, but I hate, scary movies and shows. I don't like that stuff. I'm like, I don't either. I hate that stuff. I hate scary movies with a passion. I hate scary games. I hate scary movies. But I do like suspenseful things, suspenseful movies that might have a creature or two in it, but is not overly relying on horror tropes, is where I draw the line. And so I was like, yeah, I've heard it's not super scary. It's just very suspenseful. And I've just been hearing so many good things. And she goes, yeah, I have too. And I'm like, we've got nothing to watch. And I got like a couple hours to kill. So I looked and I watched, or I asked her, I was like, can we just watch it? She goes, sure, fine. So we sit down and we watch it. And we get through the first episode of season 1. And I was like, that was really good. Like, unbelievably good. It's super scary. The start of that first episode is intense. And we're like, oh man, this is scary. But as soon as we got through the episode, we were like, oh, the characters are really interesting. This is a missing persons case type of thing. And she likes cop procedural dramas and things like that. A lot of missing person cases, forensic files. Excuse me. So she likes that aspect. I like the suspense. And we watched it and we were like, wow, this is really good. we should keep going. And we got obsessed to the point where it was like 11:30 at night. And I had a class at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And I still haven't even left the house. We finished the entire series in one sitting because we were so drawn in by how good this show is. And so several months later, after we watched it and season 2 hadn't come out or anything like that, we went to Mexico to go visit her dad and hang out with our extended family. We had kind of like a family vacation of sorts with a lot of my in-laws. And I was talking to her dad about this. And I was like, man, if you like science and you like all this stuff, you will probably like it. And so we were talking this TV show up to everyone because we were just like, this is a good show. Everyone needs to watch it. It's so good. And so her dad watched it while we were there and he really liked it. And we were psyched. We were on it. We were in, the fandom of Stranger Things. And so we watched season 2 when it came out and we were obsessed with it again. We loved it. A lot of people didn't like season 2 for various reasons, I guess. I don't know. I thought it was fine. I don't know if I would say it's better, but I'd say it's on par. I'd say it's just as good. It continues the story. It's really interesting. It's not that new sense. It's like with BioShock. And I'll be the first to admit that I remember when BioShock 2 was announced, I went, why? Because I love BioShock. I've already said it's one of my favorite games of all time. It's in my top 10. BioShock 2 was such an unnecessary sequel. And the reason why people hate it, even now, is because it doesn't give you that same new sense. Because you return to Rapture. You are a big daddy. You've been these things in these games to the point where it's not new. It's not as interesting. Even though BioShock 2 is a better game, gameplay-wise, than BioShock 1. BioShock 2, the original, had such a new feeling to it. The storytelling was brand new. The audio dialogues. BioShock kind of did it first. People say, oh, System Shock and System Shock 2 did it first, but same company, very similar games. So BioShock kind of put that stuff on the map, and then everyone started doing audio logs and all this stuff. So you return to Rapture, you do all this stuff that you've already been to before, so it's not that new sense. It's like the same thing if you move into a new house, like that first week or two is just interesting because it's new. But once you start living there for a while, it's the same old, Same thing here. And so season 2 of Stranger Things, I think a lot of people just got their mind wrapped around, this has to be new, this has to be exciting. Oh, it's the same characters. It's not like an anthology or anything. It's the same characters, same stuff. So we watched the first 2 episodes the night she got back before I left. And we are obsessed again with season 3. Season 3 starts off really, really high, is super exciting. And again, something a little bit different. The kids are growing up. There's been, in the story, there's been a year gap since the last season. And the reason why is because it took so long that they said, hey, we're going to wait a year to shoot this. And then they realized kids grow up and they change, their voices change, their bodies change, their features change. And so they said, well, these kids looked a lot younger in season 2 than they do in season 3. So we're going to write it so that it takes place a year after the events of season 2. So we only got 2 episodes in, and those 2 episodes are phenomenal. It does rely a little heavily on the music in it, but the shots is something that kind of stuck with me while we were watching this. We watched this and I was sitting there and I was like, they don't make stuff like this anymore. Every movie looks, this is a TV show, but it's Netflix. It's cinematic in the way that it's shot and written and directed and acted. And it's basically, that's what I like about TV shows. I don't like movies because they don't allow a lot of character development. There are certain types of things that should be movies, but there are the majority of movies that are produced should not be movies. They should be some other art form or take some form, because movies don't allow you very often, unless you get it really well written, directed, and acted, they don't allow for enough character development. You have roughly about 2 hours, give or take, on average for a movie to learn the character, who they are, the way that they think and act on, and dealing with whatever is going on in the story, and then wrapping everything up. You don't have enough time to very well convey to the audience their characteristics, their desires, their emotions, their feelings. It's very, very rare that you get that stuff. So with Stranger Things, it's so well done. The Duffer Brothers, the guys who write and make this stuff, all the shots are lined up beautifully. They're cinematic in nature. And I just sat there watching these episodes of this show, this TV show produced for Netflix. And it's like, man, this is so much better than 90% of the garbage that's in the theater right now. And so we got obsessed with it again. And so last night we watched the rest of the series or the rest of the episodes, except for the last one. We're waiting on that because it was just a little too late by the time we got to episode 8. And man, this stuff it's incredible. It's such a good show. If you like 80s adventure, if you like adventure where a story starts and crazy things happen, you watch these characters deal with all this stuff. Yeah, there are tropes in there, but obviously that's going to happen with anything nowadays. Every story's kind of been told. It's just different retellings of it. So I would definitely suggest, if you like Stranger Things, obviously I'm sure you've already binge watched it and you've seen more than I have at this point, but it is so well done. It's like, man, this is so much better than 90% of the garbage in theaters or even on TV. I watch a lot of stuff, but I only give my attention to the stuff that's worth it. Like I said, with some anime like Neon Genesis Evangelion, it's not worth my time. I'll probably never finish that. I might have it on the background to say, yeah, I've kind of gone through the whole series, but I'll never finish all 23 episodes of that show. It's just not worth it. It's not interesting to me. I think at the time, sure, yeah, it was great. But I think looking back at that series, it's very, very poorly written, poorly acted, and just a boring story. Maybe I'm wrong. Prove me wrong, show. But Stranger Things is so well done. It's like, man, there is nothing like this out right now. And it brings you back into that childlike wonder and feeling and emotion of being a kid and watching these things around you happen, not knowing what's going to happen and trying the best you can with what you're given. And, you're dealing with a girl that has superpowers. You're dealing with government agencies that are trying to cover up stuff. You're dealing with supernatural monsters and other dimensions and, goofy small town hijinks and stuff like that. And it is incredible. It is so well done. So I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't seen Stranger Things, go watch it. If you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Go tell other people about it, because this is the type of stuff, this is why Netflix is good, is because it's putting a chance on things that would never have a chance on normal TV, on mainstream TV, and it wouldn't have a chance in the theater. So Netflix is this void that is filling this gap, Netflix is the thing that's filling the void of medium of TV shows and movies in documentaries that don't exist and should exist compared to all the garbage reality TV that's on. And compared to all the garbage, crappy movies that are coming out week in and week out, how many more Judd Apatow, Seth Rogen movies need to be made? Or Adam Sandler movies? Or, superhero movies? Like, let's get something different. Yeah, Eleven has superpowers, but she's not a superhero. It's not a superhero story. It's about a kid who was experimented on and has abilities, but she's one out of, the entire cast. Everyone else is just a normal person dealing with the supernatural stuff. And so it is just, I can't say enough good things. I'm very excited about the last episode. And then, so we finished that last night, or got to the last episode. I'm going to watch the last one tonight. And then the other thing that I really started playing and got really obsessed with in the last day and a half or so is the Lovely Planet series. The Steam sale happened, and so I was going through and I was like, man, what should I buy? And there was not really anything that was showing up, but I saw I can't even remember how I got to it, but I noticed that there was a Lovely Planet 2, and the Lovely Planet series is basically just this weird Japanese first-person shooter where you are an arm shooting squares at little red blocks that shoot at squares at you. And it is so cute and so Japanese in its nature. Think Katamari Damacy with first-person shooting. That's basically this game. It came out several years ago, I think 2013-ish, somewhere around there. And then a second one came out last year, I think, or this year. I don't know. But I found that there was a second one, and I was like, oh, shoot, I never finished the first one because this is really hard. So I started playing the second one, and it's phenomenal. The music in these games are so joyous and enjoyable and fun that, man, you are going to if you like just something new, a palate cleanser of sorts, man, these are the perfect games for you. They're kind of speedrunning in nature, where you do a run over and over again and try to get to the end goal with killing all the characters in the level. This is so much harder than it seems. But, I mean, for the second game, I started it and finished it within about 70, 80 minutes, somewhere around there. So less than an hour and a half, and I finished this entire game. If I can do it, and I'm bad at speedrunning and especially accuracy, like this is an accurate game. You need accuracy. But I'm not very good at that stuff, but I think you'll do fine. So if I can do it, you can do it too. So I'm going to leave you with some music from Lovely Planet. And I just encourage you guys to try something new. Try something that you haven't done before or watched before. If you haven't seen Stranger Things, go watch that. If you haven't seen This Is It from the Michael Jackson documentary and you like Michael Jackson, go watch it. It's really good. But be prepared to be a little bit heartbroken, because it's kind of depressing to think, man, this guy had so many hopes and dreams and didn't get to complete them. So just be in the mood for a little bit of a downer documentary, but it is so good. So until next time, this is Ryan Moore signing off from the Game or Die podcast. Go visit the website if you haven't looked at it. It's gameordie.net. I'm slowly building up that website again because there were some database issues, and I had to wipe everything. And even the podcast feed got wiped and everything like that. So I had to redo everything. Should be fine, but I'm going through and just kind of posting some reviews so that I can get my writing style down for my book. And just kind of putting stuff out there because it's fun. All right. So anyways, it's me signing off for the Game or Die podcast. And I hope you guys have a good week. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll have a very special episode for you guys next time. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Wow. Bye.